Well, greetings and hello there, everybody. It's me, your beloved Star Wars Dad Nooch Too Good, and I thought we'd do something a little bit different today on the channel. This video came into my feed today. The EU wants to kill microtransactions. Corporate gaming is furious. This is from Belular News, and I wanted to watch this because it applies directly to almost everything we do on this channel with our mobile gaming. I mean, I'm playing multiple mobile games on the channel. We got sponsorships from mobile games. You know, Galaxy Heroes, Raid Shadow Legends, Marvel Strike Force. I've been doing a lot of other sponsorships along the way from a lot of mobile games and games in general, and those games involve microtransactions. So what's going on with this in the EU? I thought this could be really important to listen to, and I want to react to this. So let's watch this together and see what's going on.
Well, the EU are up to regulatory.
By the way, this is new for us. Link in description, link to this video from Belular News in the description below.
Shenanigans again. The question is, will this be good for us or will it be bad for us? And with that in mind, here's a quote. Let's not kill one of Europe's few tech success stories. That was a rather damning statement given by the CEO of...
Is that really one of their tech success stories? All right. Do we call this a tech success story? It's a gaming. All right, let's move forward. I don't know.
Supercell, and its latest shot in a war that has been silently raging since April, because that's when the EU unveiled new guidelines for microtransactions in gaming. And now, after a summer of adjustment, the industry is speaking out. Now, obviously, in one way, that's all kind of hilarious, and we do sort of think, yeah, you've rammed our games full of this bullshit, a lot of it has felt fairly manipulative, it's probably good that someone is getting involved. In big picture,
I definitely would say children should not be able to spend money in these games, and I know that for people that enter their age correctly, I've had this happen where I've tried to gift somebody something, or people want to buy, if they enter their age correctly and they're minors in the US and elsewhere, they really can't spend money in games. But you know, kids will go in there, put their dad's birthday in, put just an older birthday in, and then get a hold of dad's credit card, spend the money. I get it. There's a real problem with that, and I don't know how to fix it. I mean, other than some kind of global ID system where if you are not a minor, you can present me proof of that, and then that gets more big government involved, and you know how us Americans feel about that. So I don't know, let's see what he's got for solutions, or let's see what's going on with the EU.
That is what I think. That being said, a lot of people in the industry are saying that this will ruin everything that they've built. I mean, just look at what the Supercell dude said. Basically, according to a lot of them, they say these regulations would worsen the player experience and also wouldn't improve protections. And that certainly is a bit that I'm at least interested in. They also say that this would cause widespread collateral damage to one of EU's biggest tech success stories. So here's the thing. He's not entirely wrong. He's not entirely right. There's definitely stuff for us to talk about, and this one's going to be a goddamn trip.
Well, that's no good. We want everything to be entirely right or wrong.
Get this all can be a lot. We've got tariff and trade negotiations affecting everything from Switch 2 pricing to gaming privacy laws. And that means you need a full picture. And that's where Ground News comes in. It's where I go to cut through the clickbait and to understand what's happening. They're today's video sponsor. And here's the story of the EU pushing back against Trump's tech regulation threats. We've got 107 sources here covering it, but a striking 63% on the left, 29 in the center, and only 8% on the right. That's an imbalance that put it straight into Ground News' blind spot feed. And the headline comparison is kind of fascinating here. You've got Le Monde, a left-leaning and rated very high factuality outlet, running EU defends its digital rules as sovereign right after Trump's
shows you
threat.
The left, right.
Another outlet,
Yeah, okay, I got
Americans for Tax Reform, who are right-leaning with mixed factuality rating, flips it, saying Trump slams EU digital regulations as discriminatory attack on US giants. So
Gotta love
the
it.
same diplomatic clashes, but opposite heroes and villains.
Ground News.
And just those factualities alone show you where you are or are not seeing spin. So ground actually means what you see is reliable. And when only 8% of right-leaning outlets are touching a major piece of US-EU tech news, yeah, you're kind of missing how this is playing politically. Now, I get all of this with Ground News' Vantage Plan. It gives you bias ratings from 3 independent agencies, side-by-side headline comparisons, and
I think it's really. I like the. I've never checked out the Ground News app, by the way. I think it's really important as a what we call a consenting adult, a news reading adult, that you have to be aware that everything you read has bias, even if they say they don't have bias and they're trying not to have bias. There's going to be some bias in there, so you just got to be aware of that and pay attention to what you're reading. So yeah, we'll keep going forward here. I'm letting the ad run because he's getting sponsored here. We're watching his channel, so at least let him do this, right?
With, say, their tech interest page, you can just see all the tech stories from all the angles. And if you go to ground.news/Bellier, you'll get 40% off unlimited access
40%.
with the Vantage plan. That's the plan that I use.
I'm not
that
getting
is the
paid
best
for this,
deal
by
of
the
the year
way.
for my subs for limited time. So if you want to check it out,
Tiger
check out that
Woods.
link down below. Here's a fun fact to get us going. This was kind of kicked off by a Swedish horse girl game. Yeah, so here we are. Let's get into the story. The autumn legislative sessions are starting, and we're right at the end of the consultation period for the Digital Fairness Act. So, would you like some fairness in digital format? Maybe this act is for you. Now, what it is an overarching EU legislative.
Does the government ever do anything that they don't call the Fairness Act, the Breaking Inflation Act, the Big Beautiful Bill? I don't know.
Agenda that covers loads of tech fields and where they intersect with consumer protections. Now, for our purposes, it includes features like deceptive interface design where, well, there's all sorts of shady shit that they do, manipulative elements, addictive elements, and unfair personalization practices. You might think, oh, I love things to be personalized. Less so whenever a game is trying to exploit you really wanting that next upgrade and is giving you a targeted deal that probably has 900% value or some made-up bullshit like that. Now, it's especially concerned where it hits consumer vulnerabilities and where people can be exploited. Now, you may remember our coverage from back in April, where we got to talk about the Swedish horse girl game. So
now, digital currency, when they talk about that, what we're talking about there, right, are coins in the game or credits, and then coins and crystals. That's what every game has some version of coins and some version of crystals or gems where you spend the coins to upgrade characters, or you upgrade your gear with coins. You spend the crystals to get more coins, you get more gear. Those are two in the game. And what we're saying here is, and I think what we're going to get to here in a moment, is the idea of what the EU is looking at is just eliminating all that and just saying, if you're going to pay for something in the game, just put the dollar amount on it. Now, that's interesting with the games that I play, because those games have a lot of free-to-play ways to earn crystals and coins, right? It's not like crystals and coins are only paid for. So how do you, if you would get rid of crystals and coins and say you're only giving us cash, well, they're not going to, a game you play, Galaxy of Heroes, Clash of Clans, whatever, is not going to give you cash in game that you can pull out of game and then go buy a burger with it somewhere else. They want you to spend the money in game. So that's the general and basic idea of the currency in game. Now, I do understand that when you get the currency in game, if you don't take the time to understand the conversion ratio of how many dollars go into how many coins or crystals that you're buying, and then you buy some pack in the game that either gives you what it says, or it's some kind of gamble pack where it says it might give you 20, but it might give you 100. And then, now since I've been playing these games for 15 years, mobile games. Now in the mobile games, they have a percentage chance. They got to put the chance or the odds of you pulling those low odd things, where back in the day, it was like, hey man, you might get 100. What are the odds? Don't know. But now they tell you the odds are 5%, 10%, 1%, whatever it is. So that's definitely a step up, that the odds are published in the game of what you can get out of it. But again, if a 10-year-old kid is doing it and they stole dad's date of birth and they stole dad's credit card, they're not going to pay attention to odds. They're just going to start clicking on crystals and rewards.
That's when the EU took on microtransactions. And what happened is that the Consumer Protection Cooperation Network, rolls off the tongue, laid out some new key principles.
Microtransactions, I think everybody knows what they are, but that's just when you generally download a game for free or very cheap, and then, well, I know EA has done plenty of microtransactions and plenty of AAA games, but not just EA. Sorry, you buy a game, and then you got to go buy a crate to upgrade your character or get a skin, Lots of small transactions along the way that add up to a lot of money over time, and maybe even some big transactions, but additional transactions in the game after you download or buy the game.
And this all came as a part of a case made against the Swedish mobile game Star Stables. Now, what we're talking about today, the Digital Fairness Act and its consultation period, it is building on those principles from the whole horse game saga. Now, what that means is new systems requiring real monetary value on listings, not just, made up gem bullshit. Removing multiple currency options, ensuring refunds are available. Imagine that, a refund on a gem. Crazy stuff. And also ending a lot of the FOMO practices. And especially because these things were often targeted toward kids, but also they would apply to everyone because games would need to implement them across the board. Now,
yeah, these games live on FOMO. There's just no doubt about that. Like, you can go out there and the pirates are available for the next 3 months, but only 2 weeks at a time. If you don't buy the pirates, you don't get the Galactic Legend Pirate King Hondo Onaka. Or if you want to do something you guys know better, the Jedi are available for 3 days to buy or a week to buy. You got to get all the Jedi for the next 3 months. When you get all the Jedi eventually, then you can go get Luke Skywalker at the end of it. If you don't pay for all that stuff initially, you're not going to get Luke Skywalker the first time around. You won't have him later. So FOMO is for sure a big part of, if somebody's being taken advantage of and they cannot control their FOMO urges, right? You've got a recipe for disaster there, where people that don't have tens of thousands of dollars to spend have spent tens of thousands of dollars on not only mobile games, even some just regular AAA games like I mentioned before.
At the time, the industry was obviously not really thrilled. They love making money from all of the things that I just listed that feel sketchy. And they framed these as new legal theories, as a disruption that could see games pulled from the EU if those games couldn't comply. Think about the poor monetization designers, guys. But where things left off is that the CPC was supposed to work with them, work with the industry to help implement everything. But 6 months later, the industry mood has not improved, and they are quite worried. That open letter from the Supercell CEO, and by the way,
Archer,
Supercell
Barbarian.
are the Clash of Clans people, so, some top-tier creative gaming content. That's just one of several press efforts that we've seen in recent weeks. But it's the most striking one from a senior figure. Basically, he says that he doesn't want the EU's 27 billion euro industry harmed by the DFA or the guidelines that came in March of this year. And he argues that they will, quote, break how many games fundamentally work, that they will...
I don't buy that. I just don't buy it. I guess you could make rules and laws that break the way it works. We'll find a new way for it to work. You can't argue, and I don't know the stats. I have no idea what the stats are. I don't know how many kids are faking it and buying these games. But when you look at adults, and if you look at adults, they should be able to make these decisions and do what they want with their money when they're playing games. I mean, I've had mobile gaming compared by some of my members to golf, right? If I'm going to go play golf, then I'm going to fork out $1,000, $2,000 up front, maybe more, and like $400 to $500 a month to play golf, go play at these various golf courses, or maybe even more if you join a club. So your hobbies are expensive, and as an adult, you can understand what you're spending on and what you're getting into. And I do think there should be something in place to protect kids. I'm not an expert on how that should be done, but I do think that once you're an adult, you can make decisions for your own, and you got to learn from those decisions and look for, I don't really feel like, how should I put this? I don't feel like microtransactions are exploiting adults. Generally speaking, there are adults that are, of lower intelligence, and I get that, and that's a separate conversation. But I do think if it's with kids, it's exploitative. I mean, you can gamble in Europe online. You could go play poker online. There are lots of ways that adults can spend their money that they don't consider exploitative that could be viewed in the same way being exploitative. That's my opinion. Adults should be able to spend their money
harm
how
the
they want
player
to spend their money.
experience, and especially will do this for free-to-play games. He uses a familiar metaphor for how in-game currency works, but it's one that was okay per the legal framework before the new guidelines in April. And basically, he talked about theme park tokens.
Okay.
The idea that a family can buy tokens in bulk, or they can buy tokens individually, or they can even win tokens in a theme park. And to him, this is all framed as, quote, convenient and fun, avoiding repeated cash transactions.
I think there's a point to that. Like I said earlier, in all the games that I have played, there are definitive paths for free-to-play players to earn the currency that you can also pay for in the game. Every single game has that. So I think that's a legitimate comparison. Maybe this guy's about to tear down that comparison, and I'll either have to agree or disagree, but that's a pretty good comparison. You know, you go pay whatever, $10 for 20 tokens, and you take them around and you go throw the ball, whatever. I get that, and I can relate to that, yeah.
You know, the idea you can buy loads of tokens at once. And he then contrasts this with the potential worst case under the new guidelines, where individual parental approval for each token used, including signed contract agreements, regardless of purchase value and all of that, would basically harm the experience. Basically, he's saying that regardless of purchase value, rides must display a real cost in.
You know, what he's saying is, honestly, what that said was, we want kids to be able to spend money in our games without their parents having to stop their day and approve their purchase. I disagree with that 100%, and I think that that is predatory. That was a predatory statement. One, because it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. Now, if your parent has to go in and make the purchase and they give you, you know, buy 500 gems for you, and then you go and I kind of get that, but now that's different. I do get what he's saying, that, you know, if the kids are spending the crystals, if they got to stop every time, then the parents just say, look, you're not playing the game anymore. I'm tired of talking to you, you know, for 45 minutes a day about you want to buy the blue blade, then you want to buy the red blade, then you want to go buy a green sword with the flashies. No, I'm not doing that.
Euros based on a fixed standard, not, you know, a token cost. Now, when children win prizes, they believe that those prizes are worth real money, despite obviously not being able to cash out. In his analogy, the visitors get frustrated and leave. Why? Well, because the experience isn't simpler or safer than what exists now. So, why change the token system? Well, his argument, he believes the existing frameworks can just be strengthened. You know, improve what we've got. Don't do a big new scary thing. Now, we will come back to how Supercell responds to those existing laws later on in this video. But going on, he suggests these new policies could result in companies choosing other monetization models. Things like more in-game advertising.
Nobody wants more in-game advertising. Click on this ad to get 20 gems. Click on this ad to, you know, get add one level to your character. No, nobody wants it. It's there in some games. Nobody likes it.
And this feeling has actually got a lot of backing. Multiple large European game developers sent a letter to the EU. And I have to say, a massive thank you to one of our members, Neo Nebulosa, for helping us navigate the fun industrial nuances of the continent. Because for real, this shit's complicated. Now, what happened is that Euractiv saw the letter, and then industry-wide bodies like the European Game Developer Federation also got involved. And they're all very worried, and this is based on legal interpretations of current proposals and what they would mean for them, and of course also what they would mean for you. Let's go to the heart of the issue. This fundamentally comes down to a fairly simple question, but it's one with significant legal ramifications, and it's this. Is in-game currency the same as real currency? Because if it's treated as such, as, quote, digital representations of value, then the companies trading in them face significantly more scrutiny. And if you're thinking about, say, I don't know, banking, crypto, and other things, yeah, you're kind of thinking along the right lines.
Yeah, I kind of get that idea. Like, if I go buy 5,000 crystals and 5,000 crystals cost me $20, and then a month later, if I never use those crystals and I say a month later, I'm quitting this game, I don't want to play this game, can I go and I've still got 3,000 crystals left, which is worth $14, can I go back and say, I need my $14 back, right? That's a fair question. That's a fair, legitimate question. Like, I spent my money on that and I'm not going to use it and I'm out of your game. So am I out of that money now? I mean, if you look at like golf, now you bought the clubs, you can't go exchange those. And you got to buy more balls. I mean, but I mean, unlike golf, you don't go and buy a bunch of golf currency and then you use the golf currency to buy. Yeah, boy, oh boy.
Because effectively, they would then be a little bit more like Bitcoin under the law. And to be clear, that is the position of the CPC. and therefore it's inherent to the current consultation for the Digital Fairness Act, which is the big thing that would really change a lot. Now, the fundamental argument is that people are putting real money into these systems, and they are getting in return for their real money a digital representation of that money in the form of products, like, say, your gems or your Call of Duty points, whatever it may be. So because of that, they should therefore have transparency and safety when they are spending. Now, those are good, noble goals, but implementation could be a little tricky, and it would mean some humongous changes. Now, we can't just dismiss those things because we like the principles behind the changes, and for the avoidance of doubt, we here are very much behind those principles. And what the industry is putting forward really are based on worst case scenarios. But that doesn't mean that they won't happen, and we should talk about it because it would.
Yeah, what would the business model be for, like, download this game free, play the game free, and then pay for it as you go, or don't pay for it? I mean, what would that business model change to? Because I think I like myself, I play some games on the side that I just play for free and you know, whatever. But if we went to some kind of crazy business model, you know, like every 5 minutes I got to watch an ad for well, what's that game called, Kingdom or whatever, that they got all the friends doing? I don't know. What would that game model be? I'm very curious. I'm curious to hear this out.
Impact the industry. Now, they already don't trust the EU elements implementing all of this, as flagged by George Osborne, well, that one, in his excellent video games industry memo newsletter back in April. His sources suggested to him something rather troubling, that before the new guidelines, the CPC did not engage with industry trade bodies, let alone get impact assessments. I know, impact assessments, it's real sexy stuff, but then again, we are dealing with, you know, billions of euro and how the industry literally works. Now, that's part of why these bodies are emphasizing certain facts. Things like, only 18% of kids are allowed to make purchases, that 95% get parental supervision, and that monthly spending has actually gone down year on year, which is at least a silver lining if you're not a fan of microtransactions. But basically, the industry is putting forward that they see all of this.
I know a family who they have funded their child's they couldn't even watch this. They funded their child's Fortnite, and I think he's got like a 10,000 plus value Fortnite account with skins from like the beginning of the game. I don't play Fortnite, so I don't know, but I mean, lots of families have funded lots of games for their kids. I just want to get
as using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, and
I do think it's a problem that if you're going to legislate an industry, but you don't talk to the industry about it, you're just setting yourself up for big hammers. Now, the question would be, like, some things need to be regulated. I mean, let's look back at the 60s in America, the KKK, right? I mean, that was an organization that needed to be regulated, right? And we didn't need a list of what they thought. They're going to be regulated. And I do think that is the case. Is that the case here? I don't know. That's a good question. It's of course, one side's going to present rosy stats, other side's going to show us negative stats. I haven't seen the negative stats yet there. Or some people might say if even 5% of kids are spending money without their parents checking it, that needs to be zero. Good luck with zero, especially in the age of where we're going to start having AI confirm your identity, and kids can just get a fake, like, we can make up this guy's face and put it out there, and we'll see.
Basically, that's why they've been so frustrated. Now, the CPC suggested that they would work with the industry after they did their big publication. And without direct leaks, we don't literally know what those discussions looked like over the summer. But based on current reactions, they did not go well. But more than that, apparently, the CPC also didn't work with other EU bodies. Yes, this is really getting all quite complex. People may wonder why, I don't know, nothing ever gets done. Anyway, what it effectively means, the point the industry trying to get
I don't wonder why nothing ever gets done.
across, right, is that this one group tried to set a new central philosophy in microtransactions, but they kind of did that without getting everyone else involved in the situation involved in what that would look like, which can get messy. And for an example of said mess, we've got to say a big thanks to this pack of Lithuanian RuneScape gold farmers. To put a very messy situation in very simple terms, in Lithuania, currency transfers are tax exempt. So because of this, the gold farmers thought that they would not have to pay value-added tax. but the Revenue Office disagreed. The Revenue Office believed that the gold farmers weren't trading a currency whenever they were doing their trades. So yeah, they were like trading a product, and that would mean that they would need to get their value-added tax. Now, they needed clarity on the law here, so what they did is they went to the EU, and they went to a specific bit called the EU Advocate General, and the result of that...
Wait a minute. Lithuania was taxing in-game exchanges? I could see where you could come down and, like, I know they said that big Counter-Strike thing where they just changed the whole economy and like $1,000 knife is only worth $5 or whatever. Okay. And that's like a whole black market. I can see how you'd want to, tax that black market, bring it up to, bring it up to where it's legal and then tax it. I don't know how you're taxing in game. Like, I'll trade you 50 gold for that hat or whatever. I don't know. Let's hear.
Was a ruling by the EU Advocate General, and that is that in-game currency should be considered as a digital second-hand product, not as a currency in itself. Now, that's actually quite fun for today's story, because that's actually not how the guidelines from the CPC frame them. Same goes for the Digital Fairness Act proposals as well. And that just makes everything here so much messier, because different bits of the EU, different arms of it, are taking different opinions. Obviously, that makes it very hard to get anything goddamn done. And that's part of why the company seems so pissed off here. To them, the CPC wants compliance with their guidelines, even as another EU judiciary is suggesting another interpretation. So they're, in a way, saying, oh no, look at us, we're caught in the middle, this is a nightmare, what do we do? And honestly, in that case, yeah, they do have a point. It's like different arms of the same body are saying different things about basically the same issue. That's
no way! This is my shocked face. Government not figuring out. Honestly, right now it sounds to me like maybe nothing is on the horizon, but people keep talking about it. Because right now, if they launched what they've got in rough draft, it would just be a nuke, right? And nobody wants to drop a nuke. I assume they don't want to drop a nuke. I don't know. Maybe they do want to just completely destroy all gaming in the EU, which doesn't seem smart to me. I mean, the industry, I don't know if it's as big as like, European football or anything else, but gigantic. Gaming is gigantic everywhere. Anyway.
It's obviously chaos. Chaos that could get worse with the Digital Fairness Act being implemented next year. And that would mean that, well, everything that they work on, these companies that is, may now need to be changed again to comply with the new requirements. Which would be a good thing going solely off the principles, what we're trying to protect and make better here. But, implementation is often the hard bit, and that is why the companies are very much worried. Oh boy, we're getting there. And one thing you may have noticed in this video is it might all sound a little bit schizo. I mean, here I am in 1 second being very much, look at the things the Swedish Horse Girl game was doing. That's all pretty sketchy. Let's regulate some of this stuff so that, we don't have exploitative bullshit happening that's, aimed at teens and stuff. And
the Swedish Horse Girl game.
And then you'll also see me, talking about the industry's points. And to understand this story, I think we've just got to accept a very basic fact. Everyone involved is going to present their argument in the best light that they can. The CPC will. The people at Supercell will.
Yeah.
I will. You will. We'll
yeah.
pretty much always be trying to put our argument forward in the best way. And the upshot of that is
everyone is self-interested. Every person, everywhere, at all times, acts in self-interest. That's it. Every now and then, altruism comes into play. Not when there's business and not when there's money involved on a broad scale. This isn't someone... Anyway, all
everyone
right.
involved, from their perspective, will play up the risk and then downplay anything that will undermine them. And even if we return to the Supercell dude's letter, you can start to pick holes in some of the logic that he puts forward. If you're going to update his analogy to actually be accurate to the real industry, well, then his theme parks would be having 3 or 4 or 5 different types of tokens. Just look at, what you see when you open a gacha game and you're just bombarded. And to undermine his points even more, he tries to talk about how, you can win one of the tokens as a prize. Yeah, but in so many of these games, the only thing you can win as a prize price is like, just for participating in something, is the lowest value of token. But then you can only buy some tokens in massive bundles that don't match the price of the product you're trying to buy, none of which is a good consumer experience, as much as this just web of absolute goddamn insanity does make these companies a hell of a lot of money. And when he talks about wanting to make existing legislation stronger, well, yeah, Supercell would know all that they need to know about that.
I'm really interested on this part because I think that was a Clash Royale. I think in almost every situation, the framework is there to do something right and do something well. And if we executed or performed on that, it almost always would work. But, instead of like taking the existing laws and the existing framework for something, and this is almost always true, instead of that, we go over the course of 20 or 30 years and we ignore one little piece of it, ignore another piece of it until we get 30 years down the line. We're ignoring half of whatever existing regulations are there. Nobody's enforcing it. And we've gotten a case law done on it. So now it's not law anymore. I mean, if we just enforce the laws I just think in most cases that would handle everything. Now, I do want to hear what he's talking about here.
Because they've been accused of being non-compliant with UK loot box regulations. Clearly, self-regulation and current legislation are not working for everyone. That's why we need these changes in the first place. But it is also true that he does have a bit of a point. These bodies should probably have a talk with the industry reps to implement changes in a way that won't have unintended negative impacts.
Right.
And we have seen many examples of that. As an example, GDPR, you having more control over your data, all that privacy stuff, that's pretty great. But it's really annoying having that pop up every time you go to a website and you got to install an extension to deal with the annoying thing. Yeah, that does kind of suck. I mean, I get the point, I agree with the principle, but the implementation clearly isn't really that.
And it creates a whole new cottage business around people that want to download something to get around something, and there's a whole new business in place because of the government regulations. Then eventually nobody follows it anyway because they got the stuff to download the stuff to get around the thing, and now the company that made the thing to get around the thing is making billions of dollars, and now they're influencing regulators, and it's just an endless cycle.
Great. And where it risks getting worse is that today
just
we've
like
been
the
talking
goblins.
about the concerns from big trade bodies and companies like Supercell. And here's the thing with those groups. They've got money. They can afford to be compliant with new laws, like, say, all the stuff that's been going on with the...
This is always true as well. Whenever these new compliance laws come out, it doesn't hurt the big guys, it always hurts the small guys. Compliance regulations, new compliance regulations, big companies can afford to do them. They got infrastructures in place. They can just expand those infrastructures, add people, do whatever they want, design stuff. Small companies are now, when they're beholden to those infrastructures, out. The small guy always pays the penalty for this stuff. Always.
UK's Online Safety Act and similar laws around the world. The incumbents can fork up the cash to be compliant. They can do that. Hell, if the compliance is a real nightmare, then maybe you can be an entrepreneur and sell the solution. But the smaller teams, the people who are just on the cusp of being sustainable fiscally, well, they'll be hurt more. The worst case scenario is something that looks more like regulatory capture, that perhaps looks like the incumbents adapting to the regulation, but then the regulation being so onerous that new companies basically can't really get started up. That can be really bad. But to cut through all that fluff...
And then you look at like just one guy designing a game in his basement for about 2 years and puts it out on Steam for $10 and the whole world buys it and plays it. I can't remember what that new game is called, but there's a couple of those every year, right? And I don't know.
Something needs to happen. And the reason why is simple. A reckoning is coming, and we are very much...
By the way, I'll say this about microtransactions, and I believe this firmly. I mean, is it worse for me to be spending $50 to $100 a month on a game if I'm doing that? So some can play the game for free if they want. Other people could spend a few bucks here or there. Some people could spend $50 or $100. Some people can spend $1,000. You spend, hopefully within your means. And or I'm going out and buying 2 or 3, AAA or brand new games for $50 to $70 every month. I'm still spending $150, $200 every month on 3 new games every month. Is that somehow more virtuous than playing one game continuously for 10 years and forking out? I don't agree with that.
On the clock. Here's the deal. The Digital Fairness Act is expected to be delivered in the next year or so. And what's happening right now is the ending of the consultation period for the virtual currency stuff.
I thought they weren't
clearly,
consulting.
After 12 weeks of consultation, well, these companies have been reacting in this way to make a point that they don't want the Digital Fairness Act legislators to treat them the way that the CPC allegedly treated them with all of that Swedish horse girl stuff. They basically want a chance to make sure that their voices are heard. And you know what? That is their right. They are literally entities contributing to the economy within the EU. So yeah, they should have a seat at that table. I want them to be listened to and respected, but also treated with the skepticism that is due, because they are very much not unbiased here. And just as these companies need to turn a profit, they also need to do so in a way that is not predatory toward the public. And ultimately, it's that last bit that's where I land. You can see enough horror stories of this stuff going bad, or even just the simple, basic goddamn thing. You look at your phone, there's a social media app that's just trying to play around with your brain chemistry to get you hooked. You open a video game, and now it's doing the same thing.
It's all the same. You eat a hamburger, it's playing with your brain. You take a candy bar, it's playing with your brain. This list goes on forever.
There's all this predatory bullshit everywhere.
Not to say that I gotta eat something, right? So but still, everything is about launching the old noggin into a positive frame of mind, one way or another. Now this one does it ad nauseum, on repeat, tempting, FOMO, etc. I get it.
I don't know about you, but I've had enough. And the profit of these businesses is, yes, relevant to them, the shareholders. But it's also not goddamn sacred. And the whole point of governments and bodies like these is that we can be represented, and in some way, we have some buy-in to the rules of the game that everyone should be able to play fairly, which is a bit of a stupidly optimistic, lofty-ass goal. But in this case, you know what? If they make less money because they're not allowed to be as manipulative, and people lose their jobs because of that, that's okay. Maximizing employment's not the only fucking goal. There's other stuff going on. There are negative externalities. That's another thing to consider. Yes, you could just deregulate gambling to the tits and then tax it and say, look at our number go up. But then you can also think about the negative externalities on society that are a result of sad gambling bollocks. And don't worry, you guys in the US are heading in the direction that the United Kingdom has been in for a long ass time regarding the old online sports betting. Anyway, I think you guys see the point. Yes, these guys should be listened to, etc., etc. But you know what? We should have some say in the goddamn rules, and people have had enough. I know this wasn't the most light and breezy.
At the end of the day, there will eventually be regulatory stuff on this. We're heading toward regulatory changes, obviously in the EU next year or two, he said. We'll see what it does. It's likely to dig into the company's profits. Does that bother me? So I'm generally never going to side with big, large corporations, but I'm not sure I'm going to side with the government either. So I know we'll see what happens. We'll see if microtransactions survive in the EU, and then how that, if those microtransactions are killed in the EU, how does that filter down to the rest of us here in the United States and the rest of the world? I'm very curious to see this because it impacts what I do for my living every single day of the year. Everybody, have a great day. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Talk to you soon. Always remember, Nooch too good.